Good evening, and welcome to tonight's public hearing. This hearing will include Columbus City Council's Health and Human Services, Finance, and Workforce Development Committees. I'm Councilmember Priscilla Tyson, President Pro Tem of City Council and Chair of these committees. Before we begin, please be aware that this hearing is being recorded for rebroadcast on CTV, the Columbus Government Television Channel 3. The rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. Tonight's hearing is one in a series of bi-weekly committee hearings that I hold in order to review legislation in the committees that I chair. This includes Health and Human Services, Finance, and the Workforce Development Committees. The goal of the hearings is to promote transparency and provide an opportunity for city residents to learn and to speak on legislation that impacts their lives. There will be occasions when a committee is not covered because legislation is not always scheduled for each committee. Tonight, we will hear information on legislation in Health and Human Services and the Finance Committees. In addition to covering the legislation in this hearing, the city's 2017 first quarter financial review will also be presented. In the first segment of the hearing, I have a special presentation of a resolution recognizing June as Fresh Fruits and Vegetables Month. We will then take testimony from representatives from Homeport who will cover legislation that will be on Council's agenda within the next few weeks. And then finally, I will transition to Director Joe Lombardi to review the city's financial position and cover upcoming legislation that will be on Council's agenda. I will now present a resolution to recognize June as Fresh Fruits and Vegetables Month and acknowledge the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition for the work that they do to provide our community with fresh fruits and vegetables. And we will have, I'm going to ask the representatives from the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition to come to the podium. And certainly they will be joined by Cheryl Graffinino, who is the director for our local food action plan in the city of Columbus. So if you, Charles, will state your name, who you represent, and also I guess you'll introduce Ava and make your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman Pro Tem President Tyson. Hope I did not butcher your title too badly. We are the GCGC, which stands for the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition. We're a group of gardeners, neighborhood and community gardeners scattered throughout the city. We have gardeners on the west side, south side, east side, even up north. And we've been trying to focus on addressing the food deserts that are scattered around the city. So we are very excited to receive this resolution from the city, and we're even more excited to have a really consistent partner who has been there to help us with City of Columbus planning grants, resources, and basically just helping us to get really focused and drill into those communities that are most in need. With me is also one of my board members, Ms. Ava Johnson, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you, President Charles Navarrete. President Pro Tem Tyson, we thank you for the support that you've given the city of Columbus through all the grants that you've been able to provide, and especially the grants that the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition have been able to participate in. The Greater Southeast Communities United, which is the group that I'm representing tonight, we are in a food desert. We have currently about 15 to 20 beds. We're waiting for a hoop house to be delivered. And we hope to have a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables. So just having this recognition of June being Healthy Vegetables and Fruits Month is so exciting. We have about 40 children that are coming to our garden every Thursday during the summer, and they're learning about nutrition. They're learning about fresh fruits and vegetables. They're learning where vegetables and fruits come from. So we are so thankful for what the city has done, and we just ask for your continued support. Thank you.
Walk away, yeah. So the resolution says to celebrate National Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Month and to recognize the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition and community gardens for the impact that they have with helping the residents of Columbus and Franklin County consume the recommended number of servings of fruits and vegetables each day. Whereas June is the National Fruits and Vegetables Month, an opportunity to bring awareness to the health benefits of consuming more fresh fruits and vegetables. And whereas less than 25% of the adults in Franklin County report consuming the recommended 5 or more servings of fresh fruits and vegetables per day. And whereas the USDA recommends that people fill half of their plates with fruits and vegetables for each meal, meeting the recommended 5 to 9 servings each day. And whereas increasing fruit and vegetable intake each day can help individuals maintain healthy weight, reduce the risk of heart disease, decrease high blood pressure, and also the risk of a number of cancers. And whereas Columbus City Council adopted the Columbus and Franklin County Local Food Action Plan in November of 2016, demonstrating the city's ongoing commitment to ensuring that each resident have improved access to healthy food, affordable food, and local food, as well as increase the education and resources regarding healthy food. And whereas Columbus and Franklin County are home to more than 250 community gardens, 25 farmers markets, 388 farms, 15 urban farms, and many food-related businesses, plus numerous community organizations like yourselves that address issues related to food production and nutrition for the residents of the city of Columbus and Franklin County. And whereas community gardens like those that belong to the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition improve education in addition to providing increased access to fresh fruits and vegetables to the residents of Columbus and Franklin County, ultimately helping more people to achieve the 5 or more recommended servings per day. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Columbus that this council does hereby recognize June as National Fruit and Vegetable Month and congratulate the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition on their efforts to support the growing, processing, transportation, and distribution of fresh fruits and vegetables in our community. And this will be on council's agenda. We're presenting it tonight, but it will be on the agenda on July 10th as a consent on the consent part of our agenda because I'm presenting it to you today. And so, thank you very much for your.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Cheryl, for your leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And next, I would like to cover information concerning an ordinance that will be on the upcoming agenda in the Health and Human Services Committee. And Councilmember Page and I are sponsoring legislation to support the funding for Home Port's Service Coordination Initiative, which provides families with the tools needed to remain in their homes. This legislation is for $50,000, and I'm going to ask Maud Hill, the Senior Vice President of Community and Government Relations, and Alex Romstead, a Director of Resident Services, to provide additional details. So please come to the podium. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And please just share your name and who you represent, and then talk about this particular ordinance that we're going to hope to pass July the 10th.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Tyson. I'm Maud Hill. I'm Senior Vice President of Community and Government Relations and Resource Development at Homeport. And Alex?
And I'm Alex Romstead. I'm the Director of Resident Services with Homeport. Thank you so much for having us.
We're happy to present to you this evening on the services that we provide for our residents. And we're delighted that City Council has been a strong partner of ours over the years. So it's Alex's program, and I'm going to step back and let him talk about all of the wonderful things that we're doing.
Thank you, Maud. And I have a prepared statement. The $50,000, I'm sorry. The $50,000 that Human Services Funding provides Homeport ensures that our more than 5,700 low and moderate income residents, half of which are children living in single, female-headed households, have access to critical services that promote housing stability, which positively impacts our families, our properties, and our communities. Access to quality, affordable housing is proven to reduce family mobility, increase educational achievement, increase income and savings, and improve overall health outcomes. Since February, the city's support has allowed Homeport to accomplish the following: become a member of the United Way of Central Ohio's Care Coordination Network, which has provided Homeport with improved data collection and outcome measures, provide 174 families with eviction prevention services, which included connections to furniture, rent assistance, employment, and education programs, as well as public benefits, developmental screenings, and healthcare services. We've stopped 29 families from being evicted by linking them to nearly $38,000 in emergency rent and utility assistance in collaboration with the Columbus Foundation. Since late 2014, Homeport has stopped 170 evictions, leveraging more than $230,000 in emergency rent assistance. We provided nearly 200 seniors with access to fresh produce, housekeeping services, healthcare services, and opportunities for socialization. We served 138 youth through 5 after-school programs in collaboration with partners. We provided 86 new Americans with culturally sensitive case management services and served nearly 3,700 meals to youth participating in Homeport programs in partnership with Children's Hunger Alliance. As rent continues to rise in Central Ohio, the need for affordable housing and supportive services has never been greater. The need is so great, in fact, that Homeport cannot meet this challenge alone, which is why we're so grateful for the city's continued support. We hope to find new and innovative ways to continue our partnership into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for coming down and sharing the great work of Homeport and providing resources to our community. And this particular piece of legislation will continue to focus on the service coordination to residents and build partnerships that will support their areas of need. You'll provide planning, direction, support, accountability, and technical assistance to expand those partnerships and collaborations. It will also provide outreach and enrollment and direct service and training time and reporting and compliance with that. Opportunities to collaborate with its different school districts to provide supplemental programming resources, including academic support as well as tutoring and mentorships opportunities, as well as program development and team programming as a way of creating a continuum for youth as they transition out of the after-school program and keep them engaged in a positive way, such as service projects in their community. You also build capacity of partners to expand services in response to the needs of the residents. So I thank you for the work that you have already been doing in the community, and certainly these dollars will help you to ensure that the coordination of services to your residents, as well as the direct service that you provide, continues to move forward. I'm especially excited about the numbers of individuals that you have stopped from evictions and continue to move them forward and keeping their families whole. So I thank you for your work. I look forward to presenting this to our council on the July 10th and hopefully getting their support to pass this legislation. Again, Councilmember Page was not here tonight, but certainly, again, she's also supporting us of adding dollars to this legislation. So thank you very much for coming down and sharing. Thank you. All right. And Director Lombardi, I certainly thank you for allowing those presentations to take place tonight. I know because we're not having the meeting on Monday, I don't want June to go by and pass a resolution in July for something in June. So I appreciate you being very accommodating to us this evening. So now I'm going to transition to you, Director, in the Finance Committee, to cover the first quarter review. We will examine the projected financial condition of the city for the remainder of the year based upon a review of revenues and spending to date for all the departments and the offices. This review only accounts for the first few months of the year and really is not as predictive as the financial analysis that will take place on subsequent hearings. While this review, again, is important, we look forward to assessing the city finances in the months to come to make sure that we're on track to meet the projected revenue estimates. It is this type of careful management of our city's finances that is important to our credit rating. Columbus continues to maintain a AAA bond rating from the 3 major credit agencies. With that, I'd like to turn over to you, Director Lombardi, to present the first quarter financial review, and please feel free to cover legislation after the quarterly review. And the floor is yours, Director.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson, and good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present the city's general fund financial position as of the first quarter. As you've indicated, the first quarter review is the least predictive of all the quarterly reviews. As of the time, you're really looking at 2 months' worth of expenditure data, and there's a lot of information that is not there that you will see in subsequent reviews. However, as of the first quarter, the general fund, though was projecting some surpluses in many areas, we did project a deficit of nearly $953,000 as of the first quarter. The original budget, as you know, was $872.7 million, and as of the first quarter, projections of $873.6 million. The Department of Finance has reached out to the departments within the administration and have asked them to please monitor and look into their budgets of where we can control some spending and some expenditures, things like delaying hiring and possibly looking at any what we call blanket purchase orders that maybe we can cancel some of those dollars that may not be needed. You know, at the beginning of the year, you think you might need $10,000, but when you start to get into the year, you really only look like you only maybe need 3 or 4, so we'd ask them to please cancel those balances early. So we are working with all my department colleagues, and we're ensuring that they'll be monitoring those things. Also, the deficit is really drawn by the safety department, and the fire department in particular showed a $2.9 million overtime deficit. We certainly were concerned when we saw that, as was the safety department. We have reached out to Chief O'Connor. He did submit to me a report in May that we are still working through and reading about any of his measures operationally that he is looking at to try to mitigate that overtime. We are working with him very closely. He has been a very good partner in this endeavor of working to try to mitigate his overtime. The police department showed a little bit of a deficit in personnel costs because they started the year with 12 more officers than they had thought. They thought they were going to have 12 officers that were going to separate from the city. However, they did not, so the cost of their benefits and their payroll are part of that. So we are working diligently. I will go through our presentation here to kind of back up everything I just said. And I think, you know, as we get into the second quarter and third quarter, I believe the financial situation will look a little differently than it does right now as of the first quarter. And we are working with our departments to make sure that's going to happen. So in the first slide that I'll present this evening, this just shows the fund balance summary of the city as of March 31st. As you go through the beginning balance as of January of 2017, we had $62 million. When you add in the encumbrances and adjustments made to the cash balance by the auditor's estimate, we started the year with an unencumbered cash balance of $30 million. We looked at our estimated receipts from the city auditor of almost $835 million, plus encumbrance cancellations of about $2.2 million. And you add in the transfers and miscellaneous transfers in and out of about $5.5 million. The total appropriation that council passed was $872 million, or $872.7 million. When you subtract the, as of the first quarter, the operating expenditures of $873.6 million, that's where we show that deficit of nearly $953,000 as of the first quarter. The expenditures also included the deposits that we made into our rainy day fund. This year, we put a deposit of $2.7 million, which brought our cash balance in the rainy day fund to nearly $73 million. As you know, there was a new goal set for $80 million that council, I believe, passed a resolution earlier this year to raise that limit, which I think is a good idea. And that is to be reached by 2020. So I believe we'll be on target for that. We also made a deposit into what we call the anticipated expenditure fund. This is really known to us here in City Hall as the 27th pay period. That is nearly $20 million. Every so often there are 27 actual pays that employees get, and I believe it's 2020, if I remember, will be the year that we'll see that. So that's in anticipation of that. And then again, we've made deposits into the basic city services funds, which we started back in 2013 to mitigate any kind of potential cuts, whether it be from the state level or just in time of need, the city would have an additional monies there to use. As of right now, that balance is $5 million. When we look at our revenues, obviously income tax is our largest revenue source. As of the first quarter, we were trending at about 3%, where I think as of May, I had a report that shows we're at about 3.5, so it is starting to trend upwards. This slide kind of shows you the where we were in March of 16 and where we ended and the actual year end. Those would be your bars that are in blue and red. And then the bars that are in green and purple, the green would show you the actual 2017 revenue as of March, and then what we anticipate at the end of the year this year. And the little bottom to your right, all other, I do have a slide here that kind of brings that up a little bit for you to show you what sort of items are in that, what we call other, that includes your local government fund, your fines and penalties, license and permit fees. So that's what's included in the other category for revenue. And obviously, we always are concerned about the local government fund that we receive, and we're keeping an eye on those sort of things at the state level. As I mentioned, these are just some of the major projected surpluses and deficits that we saw in the first quarter. We've discussed the fire personnel and the overtime related issue that we have there. Also, the public defender contract with Franklin County shows a slight deficit. There were some changes in the charges that we were getting. I can get back to your office on the specifics, but it's my understanding that it may be that the state was not refunding the county as much, so they had to charge a little more, but I will definitely get that answer to your office. We are seeing, once again, a surplus in our utilities, which includes gas, electric, and those sort of items. Also, just some city personnel costs. Right now, we're showing a surplus of about $443,000, and then some miscellaneous surpluses. So, and that's where we come up with our $952,000 deficit that we talked about earlier today. As we relate the overtime projections for public safety, if we focus on the fire, since that is the one concern that we have at this time, we see a total projection of $8.5 million Our current appropriations were $6.9 million. Again, I'm working with Chief O'Connor to try to mitigate that overtime. He understands that is a concern, and we're working together on that, and we'll continue to update your office as well as the mayor on this situation. But we hope that this will be mitigated by year's end. So. And that's really the last of my slides for the evening. I will take any questions that you may have, and if I can't answer them this evening, I'll certainly get back to you.
Thank you, Director. I do have a few questions. The first question I'm going to ask is really was on our first, the fund balance summary, and certainly the fund balance summary, the beginning cash that we carried over, then of course the encumbrance, less the encumbrances, and then the adjusted to the cash balance. And so we had about $30 million that we were able to bring over pretty much from last year. And I know, as being the finance chair for quite some time now, we are certainly, every single year, we are dependent on making sure that we bring a substantial dollar amount to the next year's budget to be able to continue to do all the pretty much the same continuation of services that we've had in the past. And so just, and I know that in generally the first quarter budget, we've also not necessarily for the past 3 or 4 years, I'm sure that we pretty much haven't had a deficit in that number. And that's, we've already, it may have been a small number, whether it be 4 million sometimes, I think maybe it's 4 million last year. Then the previous year, it was it was higher the last 2 years. But again, and so I thought, boy, are we going to get to that number to carry over? And so just want you to talk to me a little bit about how, if your belief is that that we certainly will, because we're used to having dollars to carry, significant dollars to carry over. Are you confident that we will continue to be able to do that, that we're at the third and fourth quarter, your hope it looks a lot better, that we'll have a number that is similar to this to be carried over for 2018?
Very good question and a very good concern, President Pro Tem Tyson. And yes, I am confident that we will have a positive carryover, as we call it, going into the 2018 budget. I'm confident that as we get through the next couple quarters, we will see some surpluses.
And you just mentioned, and I know that you're managing, which I think you've done, the previous finance directors have done, is certainly watching the numbers, looking at the vacancies, and certainly knowing that that you're managing the hiring of individuals, so that's one of the reasons that the vacancy numbers are looking great, because you're managing that.
That is correct. As my predecessor had done, and I continue to do, we look at all hiring justification forms for all departments. That includes public utilities as well. And, we work with the departments as to whether those are needed right now, or can that hiring be delayed, which, as you know, that then becomes a savings of trying to replace an employee. Certainly we don't want to disrupt anybody's operation. However, our departments work well with us and understand, the need for understanding whether or not employees, if you need to backfill it, or can you adjust that workload somewhere else.
Thank you. I'm certainly glad that you just mentioned that, because I certainly don't want our viewing and listening audience to hear that because we may be delaying hiring, that would be disruptive in the services that they're receiving. And I'm glad you mentioned it. And I just want to just acknowledge that also, that we still have a full complement of employees that are out doing great service for our community.
Yeah, we certainly do not want to mitigate the services that we provide to our residents.
Thank you. Certainly, just want to commend the administration, the departments, besides the one that you just mentioned, that certainly your department, the development departments, but and even public service, just to say thank you for saving us some dollars right now. So just appreciate your leadership in doing that. Also, just to discuss just the fire overtime, and appreciative that you're certainly going to be working with Chief O'Connor in this area. I know that's something that the fire overtime has, you guys have been trying to manage that for quite some time, and hopefully they'll be able to come up with a solution. Again, ensuring that we're making sure that that our residents are continue to get the best service when they have an emergency need, but how do we, and trying to manage that with managing the cost of the overtime.
Yeah, that's correct. In the conversation I had with Chief O'Connor just recently, you know, we certainly both see the concern, and he definitely does not want to do anything to jeopardize public safety, and I totally understand that. And we both assured each other that we would work together to make sure that not only is the public safe, but the city finances are being also looked at and monitored as well. And this will be a discussion that we'll have as we go into the 2018 cycle, which, as you know, right now we're starting to gear up for that in a target process. So we will be working with not only him, but obviously the public safety director and all their folks in their fiscal office as well.
Thank you. So in regards to, and I see the police deficits pretty much based upon, as you just mentioned, that individuals didn't retire. And do you foresee those retirements coming in 2017 or
I
not?
believe so. I think they were to retire prior to either prior to 17 or just as 17 started, and as of the first quarter, they were, you know, those 12 were still on the payroll. So we will know more as we develop the second quarter review whether that happened or not. But I'm pretty sure that the thought was that they would retire with the force.
Thank you. And again, you just mentioned that even though we're having a deficit in these areas, that you do expect that this to be worked out by the end of the fiscal year, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. With regard to revenue, it appears that we're in line with the auditor's estimate for 2017. I know it's still too early to tell, but are you confident that we will end 2017 with at least a 3% income tax growth?
Yes.
Thank you. We just recently completed the ASME contract. Do the terms of that contract, at least those that had financial implications, align with what was budgeted in 2017?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Well, just going to ask you to continue the last question I guess I'll ask before we move on to the legislation. Are there any major anticipated expenses that we need to plan for and expect during the last 3 quarters of 2017?
President Pro Tem, not at this time. I'm not aware of any large expenditures that we haven't thought about, or at least in the budget, that are covered. But certainly, if something does come up in the meantime, we'll ensure that you're aware of that before it happens.
All right. Well, thank you very much, and just look forward to we're almost through the second quarter, and we will be hopefully seeing the uptick in our revenues, as well as managing our expenses. So we'll be able to have, I know it's important to be to have those dollars to carry over for 2018.
Yes, they are, and we'll continue to work at it, working with the auditor on the revenue side and obviously the administration on the expenditure side.
Thank you very much, Director. All right, we can move now to, and you'll get back with me on the public defender contract.
Yes,
So let me
ma'am.
know what's going on with that.
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
Okay, and all right, thank you very much. Let's move to the legislation.
Okay, so the Department of Finance Management looking at approximately 20 pieces of legislation that are anticipated to be on by July 10th. The first 2 I'm going to discuss are not in the system as of today. However, I wanted to make sure it was covered in this hearing. We do anticipate those to be on shortly. The first one authorizes the Finance and Management Director to award an RFP to New River Group doing business as Scioto Energy for the purposes of providing energy consulting related to the AEP electric billing. We look at a cost of about $85,000 annually on this. This is going to be an opportunity for the city and for our department. This is a local consulting firm that we will use to help us with not only reviewing, our costs that we're paying, and but also helping us when we will bid out our future needs for the general fund electric needs. Divisions like sewer and water do have some AEP customer accounts. Public service, finance, and rec and parks make up the other largest group, as well as our street lighting. And we think that there's a potential that with us bidding out the need for energy and using this company to help us with that, that's what they do every day. They watch the markets. We think there might be a potential of saving up to $250,000 a year just on a kilowatt rate. We will also ask the company to look to consolidating our bills, just like we do with natural gas. Currently, natural gas bills come into the city auditor and are paid immediately, and it's a much quicker turnaround, and it does save us money. So we want to consolidate some of our bills for the general fund. We currently have about 180 to 200 individual bills that we pay, that a department, whether it's rec and parks or service, have to pay. And unfortunately, sometimes they get a little bit behind and we get cost of late fees. So we think by consolidating and having a automatic payment that we could save up to $10,000 just in late fees. So really looking forward to using this consulting company for this purpose. I know the Division of Power uses a similar company for their big purchase power contract, so this will be very similar to that. The next ordinance.
Director, so this company will look at all the electricity billing, et cetera, with our account with AEP.
Yes.
And then hopefully look at a way of reducing the fees of either, you said could be up to $250,000 per year on one and $10,000 on the late fees.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
The next ordinance that we anticipate will be in the system is authorizing the Finance and Management Director to enter into a real estate lease agreement with 1410 Cleveland Avenue LLC for office space to be leased on behalf of the Department of Neighborhoods. Cost will be $57,985. This is the Point of Pride building in the Linden area. We are going to be moving our neighborhoods department in there. Ann Kelly on my staff has been working diligently to come up with a lease agreement that is good for us, and she has finalized that, so we are anticipating that ordinance coming here shortly in July for council's review and hopefully approval, so we can then begin to move our neighborhood department into the Point of Pride building in Linden.
When do you anticipate them moving in?
I think we want to see some of them will be in somewhere in the early fall.
Okay.
And then hopefully we'll transition all the other individuals in there as well.
Thank you. I think that will be, I think, a great addition to the Linden community, and certainly being a community that we are focused on right now, to be able to have a neighborhood department close to that neighborhood will be, I think, a win-win for both the city and the community.
I think it's a great opportunity for all of us.
Thank you.
Next is a resolution 0179X 2017, and this is to dedicate certain portions of a city-owned parcel as parkland and recreational area for the purposes of using it for supporting festivals and public events along the Scioto Mile. These are portions of around West Town and the Rich Street Bridge and Washington Boulevard over by where they're doing all the work currently around COSI. And this is to allow Rec and Parks full use of this site for parking for festivals, and also to use for people to put maybe equipment there as a, I'm trying to think of the word, just a kind of layover for their equipment, somewhere to have. So Rec and Parks and the Department of Finance have been working together over the last few months to try to make this happen, and so we think this will be good for the Recreation and Parks Department.
And so eventually, will this be used for parkland and recreational use for recreation parks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Well, it's excited because, as you know, we're excited about the ongoing development of the Scioto Peninsula. And I'm pleased that we're supporting, or supplementing the effort with additional parkland for the residents. I know the new CEO from COSI would say that that's called the People's Peninsula, so he's excited about that. So this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. The next ordinance is 1482 through 2017. This is authorized the Finance and Management Director on behalf of Fleet Management to enter into a contract with Tenant Sales and Services Company for the purchase of an industrial sweeper scrubber in the amount of $21,020.25. There's actually a lower bid. It was by Key 4 Cleaning Supplies. However, upon review of the specification of their alternate proposal that they gave us, they did not meet specifications in several areas. Some of the examples is that the specification called for a 36-volt system. The proposed equipment was only 24. The vacuum motor, we called for 650 watts. The proposed equipment was for only 400 watts. And the cleaning path was smaller as well. So it just didn't meet the needs that we needed. So we went with the second low bid on this one. And this will be to clean our facilities over at Fleet. The next ordinance is to authorize the Finance Management Director on behalf of Fleet Management to renew and modify the existing contract with Asset Works for support of their Fleet Focus application in the amount of $1,081,823.88. Basically, Fleet Focus is the backbone to Fleet Management's database on maintenance and repair and fuel usage and GPS database. And this system has been in place since 1997 and still produces very good information for not only our fleet management, but for other departments to review. This is the only company that can service and maintain and do upgrades on the system. So this is being submitted as part of the code section for sole source.
Thank you, and certainly just appreciate the work of Kelly Regan and his staff. They've always worked really to improve the efficiency and cost effectiveness of our fleet, and I know that the Asset Works product is a critical component to that. So absolutely, this is $1 million that's well spent. Thank you.
The next ordinance is 1560-2017 to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a universal term contract for the option to purchase John Deere HD equipment parts with Murphy tractor and equipment, and to authorize the expenditure of $1. This is a UTC to be used on an as-needed basis for John Deere parts. This primary user is Fleet Management, and the total annual expenditure of this contract is approximately $12,000. The good thing is they can purchase these parts as they need them, so that they don't have extra inventory. So that's part of the UTC's specifications. The next ordinance is 1569-2017. This is a ordinance to increase authorized strength for various divisions in the city of Columbus. This would include various departments, the Department of Health, Recreation, also Building and Zoning. And this is just to align authorized strength with personnel needs in those departments. As you know, we usually do a couple of these a year to make sure that all the departments are aligned with enough authorized strength for their needs and personnel.
Thank you, Director. Can you, since we just discussed some of the hiring controls just a few minutes ago in regard to the first quarter report review, since many people probably don't know, can you briefly explain the difference between authorized strength and budgeted strength?
Yes. So one of the ways I was explained to me many years ago, I think I'll use here is that the authorized strength is the amount of seats that you have on a bus. And you can't put more than 50 people in that bus if it only has 50 seats. So the authorized strength is how many total employees you could have in a department. The budgeted strength is actually the amount of employees that you have on the payroll. So you may have an authorized strength of 100 employees, that would be your top number, but you really only have a budgeted strength of 90. Plus there's vacancy credit, as you know. That is the time, the savings between an employee leaving and the time we hire in a new employee. So we also account for some vacancy credit as well. But the authorized strength is the maximum number of employees a department can have. Most departments don't hit the authorized strength.
Thank you, Director, for sharing that. And I also see that we will be having some new positions that were created through Columbus Public Health as part of our community resiliency program.
Yes.
And so very pleased about that those positions will certainly be used in the community to help when there is trauma in our neighborhoods. And I also am very pleased to see that the position for the person to assist on the local food action plan is also a part of this, and very pleased about that, as we just heard it earlier from the presentation about obviously the importance of people having access to healthy, affordable, and local food, and then there are a couple other goals that are within this plan. So I appreciate that's in here also. So, okay. Thank you very much.
The next ordinance is 1587, 2017, and this is an ordinance just to change the name and federal ID number from, I think it's Televent USA LLC to Schneider Electrical Systems USA. And so this is just changing the name of a company that we have contract with so that we can change all current and future POs in the name of the new company that bought, I believe they bought Televent USA LLC. So this is just to be able to do that in our procurement system.
Thank you.
Next ordinance is 1595, 2017, and this is to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a contract on behalf of the Office of Construction Construction Management with the Ryder Company for small-scale renovations at various fire stations in the amount of $83,990. These renovations will include electrical, plumbing, and venting and building modifications needed for the installation of commercial-grade washers and dryers at several of our fire stations. Those stations include Fire Station 5, 7, 8, 12, 13, 21, 26, 30, and 31. We are starting to install washers and dryers at our fire stations so that the firefighters can do their laundry, their turnout gear. And so there's a certain amount of modifications we have to make to some of the older fire stations. So this is what we're doing here so that we can accommodate that for them. And they will purchase the equipment after we've made the modifications.
Wonderful. Just certainly I appreciate this piece of legislation because we want to make those renovations so that when the turnout gear can be cleaned. And I know that Councilmember Brown in the past has supported legislation amendment funding actually to purchase the installation of a commercial laundry equipment. And it's really important for, it's really a critical health safety component. And so having that on-site laundry facilities for that turnout gear reduces the rate of cancer caused by exposure to some of the harmful chemicals which firefighters often come in contact with. And I just want to just again mention Councilman Brown's support of public safety and the provision of the healthy safety equipment for our firefighters. So this is a great piece of legislation, again, that supports our fire services. Thank you.
You're welcome. The next ordinance is 1625, 2017. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to exercise a one-year renewal option with Vinomaya, Inc. for the continuation of hosted software solutions and professional services related to the V Marketplace, and to authorize the expenditure of $173,800. The Vinomaya system, and better known as the V Marketplace, is our electric catalog procurement system where we load in several items and allow departments to go into our what we call the V Marketplace, which is kind of like an Amazon. They can compare prices, and so this is just to renew the option with the company for software support and any kind of service we may need from them.
Thank you, and this is for $173,800. I know that the implementation of this platform was a major overhaul in the terms of how we buy things in the city. Now that we've had a couple years with DAX and Vinomaya, how do you think it's changed the way that we handle procurement?
I think it's been a real benefit to our departments, and it's actually saving money as well, because now you have an opportunity to compare pricing of the same item, where in the past you may have only had the ability to go to one company. Now you have several companies that you can choose from, and it does promote competition within those companies as well to try to lower their prices. I think there's still some room for improvement. Anytime you're in the procurement field, there's always ways we can get better and try to do better things. But I think the V Marketplace especially has been a very good thing for the city. As DAX is now leveled out, as you know, we had our kind of bumps, as you would with any big change in a performance or a financial system, but I believe now it's kind of leveled out, and I think it's running the way it was supposed to be running. So,
thank you, Director.
the next ordinance is Ordinance 1626, 2017, and this is to expend $565,000 with Continental office furniture for the purchase of flooring and furniture for several locations, and we will be doing some flooring upgrades at the municipal court building, as well as purchasing some furniture for our judges and for our general public. And then we're also going to do some furniture and flooring for the new Department of Neighborhoods. So this is with Continental Office Furniture is a contract. I think it's a state of Ohio contract that we use. And so we're starting to do some renovations, as you know, in the municipal court buildings, and this is part of that.
Thank you. Yes, this is part of the State of Ohio cooperative contracts for the purchase of flooring and office supplies for city facilities, and for the $565,000. And just really appreciate the work that you are doing at the municipal courthouse. I know they're very pleased how your staff has been right there assisting them and continuing ongoing communications as to the changes you're making. So just thank you for working with them.
Well, you're welcome. The next ordinance is 1629, 2017, and this is to modify a contract with Roto-Rooter for plumbing services for city facilities in the amount of $30,000. This is to renovate a water main at the Columbus Police Academy located on North Hague Avenue. This renovation will require the removal and replacement of a 4-inch water main pipe that had deteriorated, and to ensure that the water service continues without interruption at our police academy. The next ordinance is Ordinance 1630, 2017, This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into a universal term contract for automotive and truck spring repairs with Frame and Spring, Inc., and authorize the expenditure of $1. The total estimated expenditure for this contract is $75,000, and its sole user is the Division of Fleet Management. And this is used for larger trucks, their springs, and the repairs on those larger trucks.
Thank you. And this is a UTC, and the estimated spend is $75,000.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next ordinance is 1640. This is to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a universal term contract for the option to purchase CNG parts with Worthington Industries and authorize the expenditure of $1 to establish the contract. The total estimated expenditure for this contract is $20,000, and Fleet Management is the primary user. And these are to purchase CNG parts to be used for not only the city vehicles, but also the equipment that we have at our facilities, our CNG facilities.
Thank you.
Next ordinance is 1644, 2017. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into contracts for the universal term contracts for the option to purchase uniforms with Cintas Corp., Galls LLC, and Genco Safety Supply, and to authorize the expenditure of $3 to establish the contract. This is to purchase various uniforms for different city agencies, including silk screening and patches, and this is for their safety and identification when they're out and working in the field. This contract is going to be awarded to 3 different companies for various items. The next ordinance is 1654, 2017. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to execute a amended easement and right-of-way to Ohio Power Company doing business as AEP. Basically, AEP is currently upgrading their transmission, distribution, and communication lines in the area, and so the city and AEP have agreed to amend the original easement and to extend them some more easement and right-of-way so that they can continue to do their upgrades.
Thank you.
The next ordinance is 1671, 2017, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into contract for the option to purchase textbooks, e-books, and training materials from John D. Pure and Associates, Inc., and to authorize the expenditure of $1 to set up that contract. This is also a UTC. The estimated annual expenditure is $100,000. Our Division of Fire is the primary user of this contract. These training materials will be used to train our Fire Division Academy for all recruits, EMS, fire prevention, journeymen, and apprentice that are coming through that train at our academy.
Thank you. And this is for $100,000.
Yes.
That will be the estimated expense. And certainly want to make sure that we have all the training materials possible so that our, for our recruits, I guess it's for recruits and
Yes.
EMS, fire prevention, and journeyman and apprentice. Okay.
Yeah.
For them to be able to get the training that they need to be able to meet the needs of our residents.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. The next ordinance is 1672, 2017, is authorized the Finance and Management Director to enter into 4 universal term contracts for the option to purchase heavy-duty specialty parts and service with FYDA Freightliner Columbus, Inc., the W.W. Williams Company, LLC, Essex Corporation, and C.W. DeMary Services, Inc., and authorize the expenditure of $4 to establish the contract. This contract is, the primary user of this UTC is Fleet Management. The total estimated annual expenditure is $210,000. And these 4 companies will provide various repair services for trucks and hydraulics, some of our fire trucks as well. There's just some repairs that our folks cannot do, so these companies are on standby to help us with those repairs.
And Director, I know that you and Kelly Regan have to find a balance between the kind of work that we do in-house and the work that we outsource. I also know that we've been able to reduce our outsourced work during the last few years, in part by investing more in training our mechanics. Can you just talk a little bit about the current considerations regarding the balance, how you balance out when we do work within the city as opposed to when we outsource it?
Yeah, so Kelly, as you know, Kelly Regan does a great job of leadership over at the Fleet Management Division. And what he has to determine is whether or not that the equipment, usually it's big, heavy equipment and hydraulics and those sort of things. Those are specialty type of repairs that even my mechanic would probably not be able to work on. There are specialty companies that we would need. But when it comes to just routine repairs and oil changes and things like that, our staff will take care of that. And as you had indicated, our staff is, a lot of them are ASEC certified, which is a great certification to have. And I believe, you know, Kelly, I'm not sure if we're at 100%, but we're darn close to that. And that just tells you the kind of training our folks get. But usually it's specialty equipment that there are companies that are there for that purpose.
Thank you. And yes, we have, I think, one of the #1 best fleets in the country.
Yes,
We've
we do.
had that ranking for a number of years, and so just appreciate the work of Kelly Regan and his leadership team for the work that they're doing.
Thank you. He does a great job.
Thank
The next ordinance is 1678, 2017, and this is to execute a lease agreement with the Central Ohio Minority Business Association for office space leased at 1393 East Broad Street. And this is just a lease agreement with the Ohio Minority Business Association. This is located at the Model Neighborhoods Building on East Broad. And we typically will generate somewhere in the neighborhood of about $11,000 annually from this lease agreement. And so there's a revenue source for us.
And but we are modifying this one?
Yes, we are modifying the existing agreement with them.
For the amount of space that they're
Yes.
reducing the amount of space.
Right,
Is that
reducing the
what-
amount of
okay.
space, yeah.
All right. Okay.
And the last ordinance we have this evening is 1679, 2017, and this is to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to execute a second amendment to the lease agreement with Jacinto W. Beard and Karen L. Beard for office space leased at 4337 Cleveland Avenue. This is part of the Women, Infants, and Children program, better known as WIC. This is a lease agreement for their space that they have at that location. I'm trying to see if there's, I'm not sure what the amendment is. It might be just to continue it and to add some additional automatic renewals for that space. I don't know if we're lowering any space or not on this one.
Director, I think it's just renewing the lease at
Yeah.
that space. And
Yeah.
this space, which is, a space is used for WIC, and certainly, again, making sure that women, infants, and children are being able to come and, pick up the products that they need to be able to continue to take care of their families. So this space is used for food distribution, and this is really important. It's critical to meeting some of the needs in the community, the Northland, Linden area of our city, and certainly it's a focus of our city in ensuring that we want to make sure it's a safety net for our residents and to provide them with the food that they so desperately need. And then the last piece of legislation that we talked prior to that was the COMBA, and that was the Central Ohio Minority Business Association.
Yes.
And certainly, again, they're reducing their space, but they're still going to be in that space.
Yes.
Providing the resources to many of minority businesses within the city of Columbus.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And that is all I have for this evening.
Thank you, Director, and thank you for giving the first quarter review as well as the legislation that's coming up in the next few weeks. I hope that for the viewing and listening audience, that this evening's hearing has provided insight into the city's current financial position as well as finance-related legislation that is necessary to support our ongoing city operations, as well as then council support for social services, especially for home port service coordination efforts. I'm also excited that we have had an opportunity to recognize June as Fresh Fruits and Vegetables Month. And I would encourage our viewers to eat a minimum of 5 fruits and vegetables a day. And we have several produce markets where residents can pick up quality produce. Again, council, I'm going to transition quickly into this. I was going to mention it as an announcement, but as part of our human services funding, we support the produce markets within the city of Columbus. And I just want to mention that there are some produce markets that will be happening, some this week and some next week, that I would hope our viewing and listening audience would certainly take advantage of those produce markets. And so on June the 22nd at the Linden STEM Academy, which is the elementary school. The address is 2626 Cleveland Avenue. That on June 22nd at 4 p.m. will be a produce market. And again, this is free to the public. Council funds this through the Middle Health Food Bank, and I would suggest that please go out and take advantage of the fruits and vegetables that are there. So there will be one June 22nd at Linden. There'll be one on June 27th at First Church of God, 3480 Refugee Road, and that will start at the June 27th at 3 p.m. And on July the 4th at 4 p.m., make sure that's still going to happen there, is scheduled at Homeport on that day, 2393 Canal Bay Way, that they'll be you can go out and pick up some food there. And July the 7th at Barrack Recreation Center, 580 Woodrow Avenue, at 4 p.m. So please take advantage of these produce markets that certainly the city has helped to support. And it's important, part of our making sure that our food plan is making sure people have access to a local, healthy, and this is free food, so it is certainly affordable. So, all right, just wanted to mention that. So, it says residents, these hearings are an opportunity for you to learn and become engaged in issues that are presented. And so before I want to conclude the hearing, I want to thank a few people. Thank you again, Director Joe Lombardi, who was Director of our Finance Department. Thank you for the presentation. I want to also thank our guests that were in council chambers this evening. Charles Niebrit, who was Executive Board member of the Greater Columbus Growing Coalition. He's the president of the organization. And I want to thank Ms. Ava Johnson, who also came down, and again, Cheryl Graffinino. I also want to thank Maud Hill, our Senior Vice President of Community and Government Relations, and Alex Romstead of Homeport. I also want to always thank my fellow council members and their staffs who work hard to serve our community with pride each and every day. I want to thank City Council's Legislative Research Office, Michael Kessler, who was in chambers this evening, who leads the Legislative Research Office. I want to thank Matt Erickson, who staffs our Finance Committee, Alexis Pennell, who staffs Health and Human Services, also Jordan Harrison, who is our summer intern, who was in council chambers this evening. Also my staff, Nicole Harper and Carl Williams, who work very hard to make sure that that our office, Team Tyson's office, is trying to meet the needs of the community. I also want to thank Nancy Sully, who was in council chambers this evening, who represents our community in such a tremendous way, works with our community. Everyone who knows Nancy just appreciate the hard work that she does in making sure that we are aware of some of the issues in our community. And she looks and works hard to resolve any issues that come to us from the community. I want to thank the hardworking team of CTV who make these hearings possible. Also in council chambers this evening from Council Member Mitchell Brown's office. Well, I thought I saw him. Wasn't he in here earlier from Mitchell's office? Oh, Grant from Councilmember Brown's office was here. And then I said thank you to CTV who make these hearings possible. And lastly, I always want to thank the residents of Columbus who make our city the best place in the country to live, work, and to raise a family. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you.